Hello and welcome to Cottoning On. This is the very first episode of my video podcast, whatever you want to call it. And I'm thinking that each month, potentially more often depending on what's going on, but at least each month I want to share with you all of the crafty things that I have been working on and letting you know how I'm getting on with different challenges that I'm going on with, and also sharing inspiration that I found mostly online. So a few things to know about me: that my name is Lorna. I am a teacher in England, and I have been sewing for 7 years. And I would say that I have knitted on and off at various points in my life, and it wasn't until the first COVID lockdown where I decided that I was actually going to become a proper knitter and not just kind of knit scarves, because let's be honest, scarves can be really boring. So I would say over the last year or so that I've been really trying to develop my knitting skills to the point now I would consider myself to be a knitter. I'm probably a better dressmaker, but I definitely have got the knitting bug at the moment, and I've also dabbled in a little bit of crochet. I'm also a cross stitcher, but cross stitching is kind of on the back burner at the moment while I'm focusing on really developing my knitting skills. So I'm going to split this vodcast, what I don't really know what we should call it, video, into different sections that will happen each time, and the first section of each video is going to be active projects. So in active projects, I am going to share with you what I have been working on in the last weeks or so. I do have kind of projects that are hibernating, to use Ravelry terminology, or that are cut out and are waiting to be sewn up, but I'm going to be focusing on the things I've actually been working on recently. So I first of all have been working, I can't get it out of the bag, I have been working on some socks. These are for me. So you can see I have, well you can't see, it's not held it up yet. I have been working, I've done the heel. It looks absolutely massive. Oh, I'm a bit worried about that now. I am on the foot rows of this. It's just a vanilla sock. I recently took part in the Perfect Fit sock course run by Nitty Natty. So I'm just using the skills that I've learned from that and knitting a vanilla sock. It's got a fish lips kiss heel, which is a pattern by Socks Therapist on Ravelry. The yarn was from Woolly Mama's Mystery Neon Club. This was the January colour, so I don't think I'm giving away any spoilers here. And then the bright yellow, I realised it was kind of self-striping as I started to knit, so I bought this opal neon yellow from Woolstack, but it just feels really rough compared to this part, so I'm hoping that when it gets blocked that might kind of soften it up a bit. It's the same constitution, it's 75-25, it's the same blend in the yarn, but it just feels horrible. So I'm hoping it's going to soften with a wash, but I think I need to do my measurements again. I think I need to do my measurements again, because my last sock, now that I've blocked it and worn it, it's gone really big, and looking at this in the camera it looks huge, so we'll see how that goes. But I did a the sun's gone in, I did a 1x1 twisted rib, but it does stretch, but I've got big chunky ankles, so it's not the most stretchy. Perhaps wouldn't do that again on another pair. So that's my first project that I've been working on. My second project that I'm working on is, if I can hold it up, this is a Harlow hat designed by Andrea Mowry. I'm doing a really terrible job of holding it up. And this is, it's 2-colour brioche in the round. I'm learning to brioche. This is my first ever brioche project. Getting it started was not the easiest, and I had to buy some new needles because I didn't have the right length and mine were too long. So getting it started was difficult, but actually now that the pattern is established, so you can see it's going to be reversible. Now that the pattern is established, it's so far, I think it's going to be quite, it's not mindless knitting, but it's not too taxing. It's the kind of thing you can do in an evening when you've been at work all day. So that is the second thing that I'm working on. It's with fingering weight yarn, 4-ply. Is it 4-ply? It's fingering weight anyway. And this is some leftovers that I will show you the leftovers from what in a second. But it does feel quite slow going because there's all my hair knitted into it. It is only 4-ply, so that's like 2 evenings work there, and there's not a lot to show. But it's slow, and you know, it's not always about being quick, is it? So that is my second project. Now, this project isn't strictly something that I've been working on, but it's something that I've been thinking about. So, God, this is supposed to be a moneta dress, and it has been in my naughty corner for at least 2 years, if not 3. I bought this fabric in Amsterdam in 2019 as a souvenir. It's this really, the camera's not really picking up just how neon it really is. Like a t-shirt weight jersey. God, I'm just looking at this now and looking at past me. So this is the neckline, and I've just completely not caught that and tried to bodge it. So there's quite a bit of unpicking here to do. But anyway, I had to change cameras because my phone is full. So where was I? The pattern tells you to gather the skirt with clear elastic, which is what I've done, and I've made 3 or 4 moneta dresses before and managed to do it. But I got probably not even halfway round one skirt, and I only had this much elastic left, and it started to rip. So my sewing machine, for some reason, just decided that it was not going to gather with elastic anymore like it had always done before. I think, yes, I've had my sewing machine serviced since I did this. So I'm going to unpick this really terrible gathering job that I've done, and might have one last go with clear elastic, and if not, then I'm just going to gather it. I can see I'd already had a go because there's all bits here that I'd not unpicked properly. But if it won't gather with elastic, it was in the naughty corner. I was so cross that I couldn't do it, and that I'd ruined this fabric that I bought as a souvenir, that I haven't touched it in all that time. But now I think I've kind of had enough distance, there's quite a lot of distance, from this to think, well, actually, if it won't gather, I can gather it with, I've got a gathering foot, or I could do it by hand with a couple of threads along the top. So that's something that I want to fix soon. The last thing that I want to share with you is something that I have finished, and this is, oh, it's stuck to my finger. Got to have a sharp nail. Oh, yeah, keep that nail out of the way. This is the Outstanding Shawl by Christy Archer, and this has been a knit along hosted by Nitty Natty and Yarnia in New Jersey. This is where my Harlow hat yarn came from. It was left over from the colour work. The main colour here, which seems really short compared to everybody else's, I think my gauge must have been a bit off. This was also from Nitty City. It's an Emma's yarn, beautifully basic. But this is just, it's not a huge shawl, as you can see. It's got the coloured border, and I made the border bigger by adding in this pink stripe. But I'm thinking this is going to be more like a kind of scarf, more of a scarf than a traditional shawl. but I finished that last week and gave it a block and gave it a really good stretch actually. So my shawl is finished for the knit along, just in time because the closing date for entries to the competition is on Thursday coming. So those are all of my projects and finished projects. Now we are going to talk about my fabric challenge. Let's talk about my fabric challenge. So during the pandemic, like a lot of people, I was working from home, and let's be honest, it wasn't the most cheerful of times, was it, that we couldn't see our families and do all the things that we got used to doing. So I basically bought a lot of fabric. I did have quite a sizable amount of fabric already, but I did buy a lot of fabric. I did do a lot of sewing as well, but I seemed to accrue more fabric than accrue fabric faster than I could actually sew it. So I decided that in 2020 I wanted to try and lower the amount of meters that I had in my stash. I think the time will come where I need to have a look at what's actually in there and think to myself, have my taste changed? Am I realistically going to sew this now, or do I need to pass it on to somebody else who would? So I'd seen a challenge on Instagram where people, I think it's called Whole 30, where people were trying to sew, well, it was an American challenge, where they were going to try and sew 30 yards of fabric before they bought any more. So I decided to try that myself. So I wanted to sew 30 meters of fabric, well, ideally before I bought any more fabric, but also if I saw anything that I thought, oh, that's nice, to try and think about what I would actually partner it up with before buying it, because that's one of my big things, that I'll buy the fabric without really considering what I'm going to use it for. So my first update for you is that I started the year, I was going to use 30 meters. I didn't tell myself it was going to be this or that fabric. I just decided to allow myself to choose as the moments hit me. And I also decided that I would count fabric as I cut it out rather than when I sew it up. So let's have a look at some numbers. So far this year, I have, since the 1st of January 2022, I have cut out 8.5 meters of fabric, which isn't a lot really compared to other years. I haven't been sewing quite as much as normal, but I have cut out 8.5 meters of fabric. Now in April, this is the first piece of fabric that I can remember buying. I think I've only bought one other piece of fabric this year, which was a rifle paper cam-on print that I've already made, that's in that there, it's gone in and it's gone out, that I've counted it as that I've used it up. So I recently bought this seersucker in a stripe from Sew Me Sunshine. I'm thinking this would be, it's quite, if I put my hand, oh, it's not quite as sheer as I thought it was going to be, but it's got that nice, I can't even say it, seersucker texture that reminds me of dresses that I had when I was a child, and I'm always a bit of a sucker for brightly coloured things as well. This feels like a lot here, and I think I bought 2 meters to give me the kind of freedom to make. I didn't really have a pattern in mind, so I broke my own rule there, didn't I? But I'm thinking some kind of blouse. I think it might be a bit too much for a dress. So I bought 2 meters of that. So 8.5 meters have gone out and only 2 meters has gone in so far. So I'm feeling really good that actually I have had a more critical eye when being confronted, if you like, with fabric online. So each month in these videos, I'm going to try and update you to say whether I've cut anything else out and whether anything else has come into my possession. But ideally, I want to try and end 2022 with less fabric than I started it. As part of this, I've also been trying to use the Me Made May challenge to have a look at the things that I'm not wearing so often that I've made and think about why. And as the weather's got warmer, actually a lot of the things that I've made are more warmer weather things, but the ones that I'm not wearing so often, I'm trying to think about why. And so far a lot of it has been because it doesn't quite fit right, or I don't feel comfortable in it. but I'm hoping that using what I'm learning through Me Made May this year will help to inform what kind of things I choose to make from the fabric that I've already got. So that is your update on my fabric situation this month. Let's have a look at the next section, which is Inspiration Corner. So let's talk inspiration. Now, as I've already mentioned, that I'm trying not to browse fabric so much at the moment, as I'm trying to cut down on how much I actually have. So most of my acquisitions are yarn based, and to be honest, there's a lot of yarn. I recently went to New York City and did a whole lot of yarn shopping, mostly in Brooklyn, but all over Brooklyn and Manhattan. I'm going to make a separate video about my experiences there, so the yarns that I bought in New York aren't included in this, but I will show you. Yeah, that's a whole lot of yarn, isn't it? So let's, in fact, one of them isn't actually from an acquisition this month, but we'll include it and you'll see why. So the first thing that I bought was this sock set from Camp Fibre Yarns, who are a Canadian dyer. This came at a similar pace to my Knit Picks parcel, which also aren't included in this video. I'm going to do a separate video on those. So this came from Canada at the same time as my Knit Picks parcel was coming from the US. This is called the Watermelon Sugar, no not really, Watermelon Sugar sock set, and I saw a post where the lady who dyes these on Instagram had knitted a pair of socks out of these, and it was just lovely that the way that she'd kind of used the green for the cuff of the sock and the very toe, and then the darker pink next to it, and then this, and well, you could tell just by looking what it was, the inspiration was behind it. I just thought it was really nice, so I bought that to try and recreate something similar, although the pink's looking a bit dusty actually, maybe I need to put it away. So that was my first one from Camp Fibre Yarns, which I'm going to try and make a pair of socks, watermelon inspired socks with, number one. Okay, number two was another sock set. This one was from a homespun house. Now this came from Germany. It is the sock set in the colourway Paint Pastel Princess, and it really tickles me how American people say pastel differently. They say pastel, because we would say pastel. It tickles me. It's one of those cultural differences that I never appreciated till now. This is a 75/25 sock set, and you can see it's really nice. This had absolutely no tracking. It was €7 postage, had absolutely no tracking whatsoever. So it just appeared after a couple of weeks. So just be aware of that if you're ordering to the UK, that there was a dispatch note, but there was nothing about tracking. So yeah, again, I'm hoping to make another pair of socks out of that, but this is really soft. This is probably softer than the watermelon one, but yeah, I just thought that was really lovely. Again, I saw the dyer knitting with this on Instagram. Next one. So the next is from Woolly Mama Yarns. I'm a really big fan of Woolly Mama. She just dyes some really beautiful colourways. So this one, spoiler alert, this was the Colour Collage Club for May, and the inspiration picture that she shared just really, it was really my kind of thing. So this, I went for the 4-ply weight. You can have it 4-ply or DK. It's really lovely, pinks, oranges, yellows, just very me. And initially, when I ordered it, the plan was to make some socks with it, but now it's come, I think it's too nice to be hidden away as socks. So I'm hoping to find like a one skein shawl or cowl pattern that I can use. I know there is a crochet one that I could do, but I don't think my crochet skills are ready for that yet. But if anybody knows of any one skein fingering weight knitted shawl patterns that I could use for this, I would love to know all about it, because I just think it's too nice to be hidden under your trousers or socks. It deserves to be here. So that was that one from Woolly Mama. Really squishy, whatever. Then, again, another sock set. I went a bit wild after the Perfect Fit socks kit. This was a set from Angel and Acorn Boutique, a collaboration with Siobhan's Crafts, that came in this little bag. It is a bit flimsy, but it'll be a cute project bag. So in here there is a pattern, which is the Cascade Socks by Renee Keys Designs, and you can see it's going to have like a stripe. Looks really nice, actually. Yeah, I'm looking forward to doing that. So there's the pattern, which is printed out, so I'll put that back in the bag so I don't lose it. Oh, there is also a plastic tapestry needle. Then these two contrast colours. So we've got, this one is called Heather. This is called Royal Purple. They are both sock weight 85.15. I think they'll be really nice together when they're knitted up. You can see them. Lovely. That's those. And then last but not least, as I think I've already said, that I recently joined the Loving Stitches membership, and they've got two challenges going on at the moment. There is the brioche along and a crochet along. So the crochet along is to make a crochet garment, which I'm definitely not ready for at this point. But I do feel like I could do some brioche, which I started with my Harlow hat. So the challenge was initially to do something basic in April and then spend May and June on a challenge project. But because I was already finishing my colourwork shawl, I didn't start until last week. So I've started the hat, and to be honest, that's probably going to be all I accomplish during this quarter. But then I also saw a really lovely pattern called the Under Cowl by Leslie Ann Robinson. Some people are doing the shawl version in the membership, and I saw the cowl version. I think I'll prefer a cowl because I like things that aren't going to kind of fall off. And I thought I'd got this in my stash already. So this is a Woolly Mama. This was from her Sweet Tooth Club last year. I think this was March's colour. It was Unicorn Angel Cake, and you can see it's got these really beautiful kind of blues, pinks, lilacs, and then it goes into a kind of yellow and different speckles at the end. And I thought maybe this could be the main colour. So I then bought these two. I only bought two because of the length. I needed one 100 gram skein, but there was only 50 grams, so I got these two. And I think actually, if I hold them up, these will go. There's not loads of hair everywhere. There's not loads of contrast, but I thought these would look nice together with the very, you know, the Sweet Tooth one as the main, and then the purples as the contrast colour on the reverse. So that's what I'm hoping to make with those. More hair. I don't know where it comes from. Well, I do, but how does it end up everywhere? So I'm thinking those would be the under cowl. They would be really lovely for that. So I did buy a lot of yarn. I was very inspired in April, that's then arrived in May. But I think that for most of those things I have got an idea of what I would like to knit with them. I just need to basically get on with it now, because I've got lots of other yarn waiting, and I have stopped myself from buying some other yarns that I've seen online. Someone was knitting a really beautiful long summer cardigan using Moonglow yarn, and they'd used a grey, and then for the stripes in the long summer cardigan they'd used Moonglow's Sweetheart, like really bright pastels. It was lovely. Yeah, really nice. But I've held off from buying the long summer cardigan and getting the yarns to do that, because I think I've got enough on my plate at the moment. So, have I missed anything? I've shown you all my inspiration for this month. I've shown you my purchases. I've shown you what I'm working on. So that is it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed. and I will see you next time. Bye.